Welcome to the Indie Fantasy Club, where today we'll be talking about the Sword of Kaigen. This is a military and family drama fantasy standalone by M.L. Wang. It's about 200,000 words, and it is written in the third person with multiple character POVs. So, a new world awaits. This book is set in a world heavily inspired by Japanese culture. It definitely has those samurai vibes, which I love. The story takes place at a remote mountain village where powerful warriors defend their homeland using their elemental magic system. This world it's in the process of modernizing, and yet this particular village is just kind of entrenched in their traditions and their history. It's just part of their culture. So they have a lot harder time adopting some of this modern technology that's being developed in these other regions of this empire or kingdom. So again, it kind of felt like to me, if you've seen The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise, it kind of had elements of that where this, ancient religion or practice, whatever you want to call it, it just starts to become more irrelevant and people kind of forget the history and the power behind this group of people. It's interesting to see this author's take on, a similar situation to that and how it kind of unfolds. So the book mostly follows two point-of-view characters. The first one is Mamoru Matsuda, and he is a young warrior in training in the most prestigious family of this traditional village. And he's basically like a prodigy of their ice magic. And it does feel a lot like a coming-of-age story for this particular character as he's developing new skills, trying to impress his father, who is a very prestigious leader in the village, trying to develop a relationship with his mother. All of those elements are just really fascinating and interesting to watch as you read about this character. And the second character point of view is Misaki Matsuda, which is Mamoru's mother. She's kind of a woman with a mysterious past that gave up a life of adventure and intrigue for the sake of tradition and getting married. Again, it has a lot of that heavy culture where there's arranged marriages. A lot of her character is wrestling with what she knows she's capable of versus what is expected of her in this archaic tradition. So the novel explores a lot of themes like tradition versus progress, duty to family versus personal desires, and the true cost of war and power and who really pays that price. Creating a unique story that appeals to fans of Asian-inspired stories and those who enjoy just reading character-driven narratives. So with that context in mind, let's dive into the indie review. First up, let's talk about Immersion, the world building. Most of the story takes place in the small village of Takayubi, which is also known as the Sword of Kaigen, which is where the book gets its name. So it's not an actual sword. It is more of like a peninsula that is used as a sword to any of these other invading countries. And that's why this village is so important. It's their traditional family, their most powerful family that protects this entire country from all invasions. They are the front lines of the war effort if anyone were to try and attack this country. It's a cold, harsh climate that echoes the hardiness of the people who actually live in this village. Now, if there is a breadth versus depth argument, the Sword of Kaigen has got to take the cake for depth. We don't really go beyond this small village for, I would say, the majority of the story. We are just in this one small location. But the details and the intricacies and the culture of this village just make it feel so real. So even though it's not expansive, it is just so in depth with how this place is built. You absolutely get thrown into the politics and the culture and the traditions of Takayubi, and it's a lot of fun. So the world wasn't necessarily mind-blowing, but it was very tangible. That's why I gave this an 8 out of 10. The names or the characters of this book gets a 10 out of 10. M.L. Wang just does a really good job of diving into the complexities of these interpersonal relationships. It's a culture that doesn't outwardly express their emotions that much. But we as the readers get to experience the raw internal frustrations that these characters are having. We can see what they want to say, but that they just can't because of the societal constructs that they're living in. If you don't feel deeply connected to these characters and their decisions, by the time you're done reading this book, there's something wrong with you. I personally loved going on this journey, especially with Misaki, and I just can't say enough good things about these characters. So again, 10 out of 10. Let's talk about the magic, which gets an 8 out of 10 from me. The story uses an elemental magic system, with the people of Takayubi specifically being known for their ice magic, hence why it's such a cold place to live. These people pride themselves on their bloodlines to produce the most elite warriors possible, and let me tell you, they are so epic when they fight. Other nations have wind, fire, or earth magic systems, which you see a little bit of, but we really only get an in-depth view of the actual ice magic with these characters. You know, my biggest complaint and maybe compliment is that we just didn't see more of this magic. I thought it was really interesting. As you're reading, there's just so much hype around the abilities of these warriors, and when we finally get to see them use this magic, it is worth the hype. But it's so brief. I wish I could see more. I just want more. It's just, I feel like I just got a little tiny glimpse of what these people are capable of. And, you know, for how big this book is, you maybe get, you know, that much where you're actually experiencing this magic system full force. So it's just, to me, not enough. I really wish we could have spent more time really seeing how this, you know, built and see it in action a little bit more. But again, I think that's a compliment more than a complaint, but there you have it. The infrastructure and the plot, I give a 6 out of 10. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I just think it was structured in a little bit different way than I'm used to. And if you've read this book, you probably understand what I'm talking about. The overall plot was still interesting. It was just different. And I liked that it was different and unique. It just, I don't think was my style, which is, again, this is my opinion. That's why it gets that's why I rank all of these things as separate items so that it doesn't influence, you know, if this doesn't matter as much to you, then I don't want it to influence your opinion of the book. You might actually really like how this plot turned out, but for me, not my style. Just because the climax of the book basically happens in the middle of the book. You get the peak of all the action and all of the buildup is finished by the time you're halfway through. And so the second half of the book is just all of the fallout and resolutions that come after this climax has happened. So that's actually where you get a lot of that character development, is you're dealing with the consequences of the things that have happened. And I don't think M.L. Wang could have gone as depth into those characters without structuring the book this way. So it's really one of those things where, yes, it's very character driven, but as a result, I think the plot kind of took a little bit of a hit as a result of that. So yeah, she structured it this way so that we're able to explore the deep emotions of these characters. And again, that's why the characters were ranked so high. So if you like character-driven fantasy, you have to read this. But from a plot perspective, just expect it to be a little bit different. Now let's talk about my enjoyment of the Sword of Kaigen. I have to give this probably a 7 out of 10. And I've thought a lot about this, but just weighing everything, 7 out of 10 is just where I landed as far as my overall enjoyment, which is still a really good score. And I wouldn't change anything about this book. I think it works for what it is. It's a military fantasy with lots of interpersonal family drama and lots of societal traditions and expectations and wrestling with those conflicts. So if you like those things, this book is perfect. But for me personally, I think I prefer more of the military side of things and less of the family drama side of things, if that makes sense. So I like more of the action, not so much the internal turmoil, I guess you could say. But it is really good. It's just, again, it's what your preference is. But when she does this is what kills me, when she does focus on the battles and the strategy, it's just so epic. It's so good and so well planned and so vivid. It's just, I feel robbed that I didn't get more of it. I feel like the people who like the character side of things really got their payoffs, and me as the military and battle and war type of a reader, I just feel like I got just a small teaser of what the potential was for this story and this world. Even the small amount of battle and strategy that was in it is what significantly boosts the score for me. So we're starting off high with a 7.8 out of 10. For my overall score of the Sword of Kaigen. That's a great overall score. This is a book that I would recommend, and it's a book that's gonna finally go on the empty shelf. I think that looks pretty good. And I put it with the spine facing out. I will put books that rank 9 or higher, I think. I'll have to decide, but I think books that rank 9 or higher all have them facing the cover out to show that those are my favorites out of the books that I will be reviewing and reading. So this one gets still a spine, which I think is really cool, so you still get to see it on the shelf. And I'm excited to see if an indie book will get a 9 out of 10 or higher from me. They'd have to really pull off some good tricks to reach that point. So we'll see. Stay tuned. Oh, I almost forgot to talk about the designs, the bonus content. How silly. I think this is really great. A really great cover, really great imagery with a warrior standing on the very tip of the peninsula, waiting for war to come and challenge these epic warriors. I think that just encapsulates the story so well. I also think the typography looks really good, and I like this border around the edges. But I do think also it might have been cool to see it from like an invader's perspective, coming to attack this peninsula and seeing just a warrior standing with a giant icy mountain range behind them. I think that would look really intimidating and really cool, but this is still really great. I didn't love the maps, but that's because my brain, I think, is accustomed to seeing water as like the grayed out area and the land being like the lighter stuff so that you can see where all the cities are. And I feel like this was the opposite. So it was like hard for my brain to process what was water and what was land, especially on something that has so many like rivers and lakes. And yeah, so it was a little bit harder for me to wrap my head around. So I didn't love the design of the maps, but that might just be me. But I did like the chapter headings, personalized with a sword and a title that went along with it. I thought that was a really nice touch that showed the care that went into editing and formatting this particular book. Okay, that's it for real this time. Be sure to let me know in the comments what other indie books you want me to review. Some of your favorites, some that you've read that you think aren't getting enough attention. I'd love to add them to my TBR. For now, I think I'm just going to check out some of the more well-known and popular indie authors that have come out. But I'd love to start diving into indie authors that aren't as well-known or don't get any attention. So I do hope to get to that point soon. So be sure to join the Indie Fantasy Club and let me know. I'll see you in the next review.